Cool. Okay, so this is part two of week 8 in mobile app portfolio 1. And we're just doing a little recap of web design development and HTML and CSS because I know some people don't have a lot of experience in HTML and CSS. Obviously, same kind of process where you design things and then you develop, similar to like the SDLC. Always plan first, design first, wireframe first, and then make your site. Okay, so in terms of making a website, all right, we're gonna make one together here. So whatever folder structure you have for making your class work, if you're in the week 8 folder, inside of that, I'm gonna create a new folder and I'm gonna call it root, okay? You can call it whatever you want. You can call it website, you can call it, a lot of times you'll see it if you use WordPress, it'll be called public underscore HTML. You can literally call it my underscore website. You could, you know what, maybe I'll even call it this portfolio underscore website. Root is a very common generic name that a lot of people use, and inside of it is where they store all of their website stuff. So in here is where we're going to create all our files. So if you want to create your file now, then you can get that set up. Okay, so inside of your folder, you're going to usually have a couple of files. Okay, so you'd have an index.html, a style.css, and an images folder, and you'd store all of your images inside of that folder. Now, there's always all the files are always lowercase, and if there's any spaces in words or anything like that, you use an underscore. Okay, the reason you don't use a space or whatever is because if there is an actual space, the computer interprets that as a %20, right? You may see that sometimes on like Google Chrome in the address bar. If there's ever a space between something, let me see if I can find an example. Like up here, %2, %20, right? It interprets a space as a %20 and it slows down the indexing on your machine. If you're actually ever searching for files, you won't be able to find them as fast as if you had an underscore in between. So that's why we do that. And all lowercase is just the naming convention for doing HTML files and file management. Okay, so what we're going to do is do new, and we're going to create these files. Now, you can create them like this. You can do file new. There's another way you can right click, shift right click, and open a PowerShell window. Or you can open up your command prompt like this, and you can CD. If you've ever used command prompt, you can CD and then paste that directory into your command prompt, and then you'll notice that the directory, now I'm on a different drive here, so I'm going to get on my eDisk. Go. CD. Seconds. Got my formatting wrong for this. CD. There we go. Oh, I should be able to go on that. CD. Trying to get there. Second. I am typing it right, but for some reason it's not working. Followed by the /d switch. CDE. Find the file specified. It's because it's capital. Okay. Sorry guys, just one moment here. I just wanted to show you a cool way that you can create files. So if you don't have this option to shift right click and open your PowerShell window, um, you know, same thing you can get there with your command prompt. But okay. So now that you're in the directory that you're wanting to be in, okay, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can actually see this. We can create files from the command line. So you might say, like, when you right click new, there's no option to create a CSS file. There's only options to create Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, text documents, whatever. And another way that you can create the file is through command prompt, or another way that you can create the file is from whatever text editor and then saving it here with that extension, okay? Now, if we want to actually create the file, the empty file, the command that we would use is echo. So we want to echo into index.html. All right, and it should be in here. So it's just looking for some input parameters, but I want it to be empty, so I just hit enter, and then there we can see it's right there. And if we also want to create a style.css file, let me show you this actually a little bit. I'm just going to shrink that a bit. So you do echo style.css, all lowercase, no spaces, hit enter. It's asking for some input. Oh, I did it wrong. You got to use that arrow, right? There it is, style.css. And then if you want to create an actual folder, create a folder, what is that? We need to create an images folder. Yes, that's right. You do mkdir make directory, and then the name of the folder. So we want it to be images. And there it is, images. Okay, so that's one way to create your files through command prompt, just in case you didn't know that. Cool little trick. And the other way, obviously, is if you have Visual Studio Code, to open up Visual Studio Code, and then create the file in Visual Studio Code. I will open up the folder that I just created. Open the folder, and kind of get a crash course here. HTML. So there's my folder, select folder, and we can see Visual Studio Code. Here's my images folder. It's empty. There's nothing in it. My index.html and style.css, all the files are empty. Now, if I want to create a new file, and we'll do this right now. So you're going to have your index.html will be your main home page, right? That's what we always call your home page. Now here in Visual Studio Code, you can select the language, and I can say this is going to be another HTML page. So I can do that, HTML. And then it's saved as untitled right now, but if I want to do save as, I can call it, about.html. I can call it contact.html, privacy policy.html, whatever you want. But it already knows here, save as type is HTML. But if you didn't select the language, you could find it down in this list. Scroll down to the H section and then HTML. Okay, and then we obviously want to call it about.html. I always get this little error here. About.html, save, and that's another way to create the file. A little bit slower than creating it through command prompt, but there we go. We've got these two. Cool. All right. Is everyone following along so far? So we've got these empty pages. Now, if I double click this, obviously nothing's going to happen. It's going to open up in my browser because HTML is a hypertext markup language that is rendered by browsers. So here we are. We can see that this is the file path. It's on my eDrive desktop teaching week 8 portfolio website, right? Now there's nothing there, obviously, because I've got nothing in my file. Okay, so here's all of our files open, and we'll make our index page, index.html first. Okay, cool. So going back to the PowerPoint, we've got all our files. Now I want you to find an image of yourself, okay, that you would want to use as like a profile picture or show off, who you are on your portfolio page. So I will find one of those images of myself while you guys browse for an image of yourself. I believe it's in my pictures. You see. Maybe you have to go download it from your LinkedIn or something, but you know, a professional photo that's respectable and something you'd use on a portfolio site. So this is just setting up our HTML file. Sorry. This is just setting up our environment. Just like you set up your environment in, you know, GitHub, or sorry, Android Studio or Xcode for developing an app. The same is true for setting up your environment for a website. Now, this is just for locally running it, but once you've finished developing the code exactly the way you want it, then you just upload that folder that we named. I named mine portfolio_website. You'd upload that entire folder to a server, and then it would just be hosted live, right? Okay, so here's a photo of me. Image address. Download it, save image as, and I'm going to save it right into my images folder. And make sure it's a valid image file type, right? A .jpg or a PNG or a JPEG, JPEG, whatever you want. So there's my image, and we're going to rename it something sensible. We'll just call this profile picture, _picture, all lowercase with an underscore for spaces. Okay. Any questions so far? Is everybody, you know, keeping up?
Yeah, this is great. Very good.
Sweet. Let me know if I'm going too slow, too fast. Is the speed okay so far? I don't know if everyone's brand new to it or if it's, you know, is it good speed? Okay. I know some people have tons of experience with HTML, so I don't want to go too slow, but I know some people, they've never, how many people like show of emojis have never made a website before, never touched HTML, never touched any of that? Okay, great. Sweet. Okay, perfect. Cool. So yeah, we'll go at the same speed that we're going at, and we'll get it set up. Okay, so you should have your directory set up now, looking something like this. And if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, which is kind of like your Android Studio or Xcode editor for your project, whatever IDE you want. You can also use Sublime. You can use Dreamweaver, which is a paid-for version. I'm pretty sure JetBrains has a developer for it as well. Visual Studio Code is great. There's so many add-ons and extensions, and it's free, and you know it's everything you'd really want for basic web development. So if I expand my images folder, I can see here's my profile picture.jpg right there that I'm going to use. It's from my LinkedIn, so that's great. So there's the image. Okay, so let's go back to PowerPoint and we'll follow along here. HTML, hypertext markup language, CSS is cascading style sheets. The reason it's called cascading style sheets, okay, and we'll get into this in a little bit, is because if you affect an element or a selector is what they call it, okay, for a paragraph tag, okay, so say you want to have a paragraph, okay, on your website. And we'll do this right now on our index.html. We will make we'll make a paragraph tag in a little bit and I'll explain it there. But basically it's called cascading because the effects of your style or how you choose to design and style your website will cascade down unless you specify otherwise. So it'll cascade to all the other elements on the page. So if you have a paragraph here and a paragraph here and a paragraph here somewhere else, and you put a style of, you know, having red text or centered text on all paragraph tags, it'll apply that to all paragraph tags. So if you have 3 paragraphs on your page, it'll cascade through all of them and it will affect all of them. It won't just affect one paragraph. That's why it's called cascading style sheets, okay? We'll get to it in a little bit and I'll show you an example, but you don't have to worry about it too much. Just good to know. Okay, so with most code, and same with HTML and CSS, we want to indent it for readability. So you want, all of your code, if there's another tag is what we call these, you indent them. Okay, so if you have things that are nested, is really great for readability, for being able to understand what element is inside of each other. What's the parent? What's the child? What's the child? Going on. So we indent for readability, and comments are really important for yourself and for future developers. So please get in the habit of commenting. Okay, talking about design with websites. If you ever need a color scheme for something, there's a really great website. Both of these are really great websites. I'll just open them up quick, and we might use them today, depending on time. There's Color, Adobe, and Paladin.com. Is that working? Open. There we go. Now, here's the websites. So, color.adobe.com is really great. I'm going to skip the tour. You guys can use it, but you can upload an image. Okay. Say yes to cookies and whatnot. This is cool. So you can do this and get images or colors like this by dragging the wheels around, and you can change the harmony rule. The harmony rule is the distance between the colors on the color wheel. Obviously, this is, everything has to be perfectly even between, so you're going to kind of get like a rainbow effect. But if you want to get complementary colors, you can drag these around like this, and obviously see, the rule is with the color wheel that colors on the opposite side of the spectrum complement each other. And I can slide the second one in here and kind of get a color theme that I can use throughout my app. Now we use hex values, just like how you would in Android Studio or something. You can use the hex codes or the RGB values here coming down, and we can slide this through. So if I want like yellow to be my primary colors through here, then I can use the yellows and then these complementary colors here. Now we can do split complementary, double split complementary, square, anything like that, right? And change that. But the main thing that I think this website's really cool for is it can extract a theme of colors from an image. So just like with that profile photo that we just downloaded, I want you to try uploading that photo to this website here. And so I did that, and there you go. It extracted the reds from the brake lights and the cars in the background here. So that could be an accent color. It extracted the blue from my jacket, the pink from my skin tones, and then, the gray sky here. So that could be a really cool way to get a color theme, and you can change the moods if you want more of a muted tone or deep tone, here on the sides. If I wanted more of a dark site feel, I could go with this. If I wanted more of a bright site feel, I could go with this. And we can just kind of, if we want a colorful theme, then we can go with that. So really cool way to get themes and colors. The other website is Paladin.com. Not sure why it's not fully loading, but if you can get this working on your site, it's the same kind of idea with changing a color wheel and getting themes just like that. So I'll leave that open for later when I want to grab some colors, but we'll go back to the PowerPoint for now. Okay, so computers, you can use colors when you're referencing colors in CSS to style something, but it has to be a specific value. So you can't just write bright orange. Typically, we use hex values, right? Because computers speak in code, and hexadecimal values represent colors or RGB values, like this. But sometimes what we can do is we can assign specific keywords in language to represent a hexadecimal value. So if I go in here and I go into my style.css and I wanted to, affect all paragraphs, and I type, color red, we can see red here is a keyword. And if I hover over it, we can see there's the hexadecimal value for red, FF000. Now I'm just going to delete that for now because I haven't really covered what CSS is or how it works yet. But just remember, that's how colors work. And here's all the hexadecimal values of colors. Choosing a color theme, we kind of talked about that already. You obviously, when you make a website, the one on the left here with super high contrast, disgusting UX and UI, poor design, compared to this one on the right, right? There's neutral tones, there's spacing, even spacing between images. It's complementary to each other. Yeah, just try to design your website so it doesn't look like the one on the left, obviously. Cool. We've already kind of talked about design with font and typography. You can find really cool fonts on Google Fonts. They're all open source. Typically, if you want to use a font family, you can go to a website like Google Fonts, and you can actually filter the type of font you want to use on your website through something like this. So I could type, maybe something like my name, because that's going to be on my About Me site. And then what I can do is look at the font properties here. And me personally, I like thinner fonts, so I'm going to slide that slider down. I don't want any slant. And width will go like that, okay? Let's see. It's too thin. Okay. So you can kind of slide these to find, a font that you might like to get a theme. And I can change the size to see, do I like this? Do I like that? If I want to see the number of styles, I can make this even thinner and change this to really get something that I like. Once you find a font that you like, I can also just reset this and scroll through. These are the trending fonts right now. Once I find a nice clean font that I really am comfortable with using on my website, then we can, add that to our file. But we'll get there in a little bit. So good. Yes. Now, talking about planning. Today, we'll use this as a very basic example, but you always want to wireframe for things, right? So there's a website that I really like for web design wireframes. You can use Adobe XD for making really complex wireframes, and we're doing that with our apps. But for the website, you can use this one, wireframe.cc. It's really quick, it's really easy. And let's say we want to make a portfolio site. So I don't know, you can design it however you want. I would expect, maybe when I land on the site, it has some text. Text. There we go. It's not working. It should work. A sec. Stop my ad blocker on this website. Stop my website. Okay, cool. Refresh this. Then, now let's see if it works. So maybe it'll say like my name when I come to the site. Oh no. Usually this works for me. Anyways, we can wireframe with this thing usually. Maybe try it in a different browser. Let me know if it works for you guys.
Yeah, it's working on my end.
It is working for you. Okay, interesting. Don't know why it's not working. Frame.cc. You can sign up, obviously, and then get more features, but now if you just want something that's free. So, goodness. Okay, it's not working for me. I don't know why. You can change the device. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. Okay, so come up with whatever you want for your text. Obviously, if you want your name because it's your portfolio website, delete this thing. change the size of it and the positioning. And it's got little adjusters so that you can make sure you're centered, right? Just right. Yeah, that's good. And then if we want to have our image, okay, we can just use a placeholder for our images, right? Wireframes are just supposed to be, very simple black and white, no images, no fonts, nothing like that. And then, here we could have down here a little bit about me. So this would say about me, center it a bit bigger, done. And then we can have maybe a paragraph about ourselves. And then that's where we can just put in whatever junk text, right? And then if we wanted to have another page, you could obviously save this and upload it to the cloud or something like that. If we wanted to make a page with stuff about our projects, we could just change this to say, projects, and then you guys are going to have 4 projects, right? So maybe you would have sort of a thumbnail for each of your 4 projects. Maybe I want to copy and paste this so that the sizes are all identical. Make sure that they're aligned like this. And there we go. We can have our 4 projects, and we could have a little bit of text about them on the top about what each project is. Or maybe we would put the text on the bottom once we decide what we like better, right? So that's kind of what the wireframe is for. Maybe I go like this, make this a little bit bigger, bold it, and then you can shift click as well to do multiple objects. We can bring these down underneath, something like that, right? And then obviously you could center those. I'm going a little bit quick here, but there we go. So that would be, maybe we'd have a header up here for navigation. So you can just use the square, and then inside that you could do a little logo with, this would be button, this would be a button, and this would be a button, right? So very helpful. And then these would say like your home, about, and projects page, something like that, right? So very helpful for getting us off the ground. We'll save that for later when we're actually designing the website. Okay. So that's wireframing. You guys already know about that. I just wanted to do a quick wireframe for what we're going to build today. And then let's see. Some common tags to know about. So if you're in Visual Studio and you go to your index.html and it's empty, I believe you can type exclamation point, and then this abbreviation will come up, and it will kind of make the base template or structure for a hypertext markup language document for creating a website. Okay, so it'll make a template that has all of the metadata that we need in it, or you can do 3 of them and just get the simple version. That, right? So I'm going to do the first one and hit tab to accept it. And we'll go through what all of these are and indent some of them so that it makes a little bit more sense, okay? So if that doesn't work for you, then you'll just have to type this, but it's always the same when you're making an HTML document, okay? If I save this and I go back to my browser to run it, I'll go back to my website that I'm making. Oops. We can see there's still nothing. It didn't really do much, okay? It's all stuff that has to happen though in the background for our website to work. Okay, so doc type HTML. That tag tells us that the document type is HTML5, which is the most recent version of HTML. Okay, so HTML5 will be rendered correctly in a browser like Google Chrome, Opera, Firefox, Safari, anything like that. And it will render hypertext markup language code in the browser. Okay, so we have to have that to tell it that it's that type of document, not just the .html extension. Now, everything else lives inside this HTML tag. Now you can see when I select it, okay, you can see it highlights if I select HTML, it highlights sort of right there. So everything inside of that, we can actually tab in. Okay. Now I kind of want to separate this a little bit to give you guys some context, and I'm going to just temporarily delete this so it looks a little bit cleaner. Okay. So can I zoom in? So that's what doctype HTML is. Now, the HTML tag, we've specified that the language is English. You don't have to have this, but we are developing in English, so it just tells the browser what language we're developing in. The next two tags are the two main portions of the website. So you have your head and your body. If you imagine it like a person, your head is a little bit on top, and then your body is the majority of what makes up a person. Inside the head tag is all our metadata, everything that is like the site title, links to other resources that you want to include, like fonts or styles for your code, all of that sort of stuff. Think about it like the beginning of a book, and you have your table of contents, or you have all of that metadata about who the author is, where it was published, all of that kind of stuff is in the head. Okay, so you don't really render too much code up here. And then the body is like the rest of the book. It's the content, it's the chapters, it's the text, it's the paragraphs, it's all of that stuff. It's the images, everything that would be in the rest of the book. Okay, so this is like your table of contents, your title, your where it was published, all of that stuff. So I'm going to paste what code I had back in here, and we're going to see we've got our metadata. Okay, metadata is just basically data about data. You know, when people are like, "Oh, that's so meta," it's because it's like meta basically means you're thinking about something about what you're thinking about, right? Or it's data about data. So it's actually the data about the data on the rest of our website. So this first one is our character set, which is Unicode 8. That's basically going to include all of the character glyphs for most of the languages around the world. So I know we specified English, but if we wanted to have it translated to French or whatever, this would contain that, including some emojis. Okay, so that's all our character sets. HTTP equiv, you don't need to have this, but this is just so that it renders in Internet Explorer or Edge. Okay, and then this one, the viewport, we're setting the width of our viewport to equal the device width. Okay, so how wide your screen is, it's going to adjust that browser to sort of see what the width of your screen is. If you're on a tablet, a phone, or a desktop, something huge like a TV, a projector, and it's going to adjust the viewport to be that width. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about what responsive websites are later when we get into some stuff with Bootstrap next week. But that is what that tag is, and we're setting the initial scale to be, full size. It's going to take up the whole width. Okay, the title page. If I save this and it says document here, title is actually what shows up in the little browser tab as the title. So if I go back here, you can see here, let me highlight my mouse. It actually says document up there. Now I don't want it to say document. Maybe I want it to say Ben's portfolio. So I'll save it. You have to save it in order to view the changes and then refresh. And then there it goes. It says Ben's portfolio. Okay. And that's what the title is. All right. So that's most of the metadata that we want to have in our website. Now, none of this stuff is here, but it's all at the top. Now, if you forget to save, say I type all of this stuff in here and I go back and I have to refresh my browser page, it's not going to happen. But if I do Control S, come back, fresh, it's loading the file, and there's all that junk that I just typed. Now, a cool little workaround is you can get an extension. Okay, so if you come over here in Visual Studio Code, if you're using that as your development environment, and you search for live server, okay? And then I use this first one by Ritwick Day. It's got 16 million downloads and 338 reviews. I already have it installed, but it's very, very simple. You just hit the install button, you accept the changes, and then you might have to restart your development environment. But other than that, it's installed, it's good to go. Okay. I'm going to close it. And then in the bottom right, you should have this little button now that says Go Live. If you don't have it, don't worry. You can come back up to your File Explorer here, right-click on the index.html file, and then hit open with live server. Okay. Alt L, Alt O, open with live server. If I click that button, what it's actually going to do is it's going to run a little server in the background off of my computer. And it's actually going to run something on a port so that it's actually close this so that it's actually hosting the file. Now there's a difference between loading your file locally, right? Just when I double click it and I go up here and you can see it's just my file path and it's just opening and rendering it in the browser, or actually serving a file up to the server. Now, the nice thing about using the live server plugin is if I make an update, I don't have to do control. I still have to do control S, but when I do control S, it tells something in the background. He's saved, refresh the browser, and when I go back, it's updated. So I don't have to refresh my page every time. So if I hit this go live button here, it's rendering an old page, which is unfortunate. I might have to, I'll just go to my extension live server. I'll uninstall it because it's obviously getting stuck on something else. I'll install it again and then close that. Go live. Let's see if that fixed it. Shoot. Sometimes this happens where it gets confused with which file it's wanting to serve up. Uninstall. Reload required. I just reloaded my entire development environment. Server. Okay. Install. Okay, it is now installed. It's downloading. We can see it's downloading there. So this is how you install it. Installing. SQL Tools Services installed. Okay. Now I'll go back to my file. .html. Close this output window. Right click and open with live server. Oh, it's still running my old code. Okay, well, it should work for you.
I can tell you it worked on my end following your steps.
Okay, that's good. I know what's happening. Just ignore what I'm doing right now on my end. This is something that I have to do because of something that I'm doing for the next semester students. We're working with, I have to stop this service worker and unregister it. Basically, we work with something called caching files, and it's actually saving this file in the local cache storage so that it doesn't actually pull it from the server. So I just have to delete them from my cache storage and force refresh page. There we go. Okay, cool. So none of that stuff is loading, and now, all right. So, so an example of what I'm talking about. Okay, so now it's working. Just ignore those steps. What I did, you won't have to do that. If I want to change this to, instead of saying Ben's portfolio, and I want to say Benjamin's portfolio, okay, I have not saved. You can see the little dot up here showing that I have not saved. If I switch tabs, we can see it still says Ben's portfolio. As soon as I do Control S on my keyboard, okay, I saved it. If I switch back to my browser, look, I don't have to refresh. It's already changed. So if I actually split screen this, okay, this is really cool now that we can do this. And I make this, oh, I'm in my index.html. So we're going to go to the body tag, and we're going to use something called an h1, okay? Now, the way HTML works is you have an opening tag and you have a closing tag. An opening tag is, you know, the angle bracket like this, okay? The closing tag is an angle bracket with a slash and then a closing bracket. So everything in between these two, you have your opening and your closing. I can, I can enter if I really want to. And you can type, you know, your title here. Now, with an H1 tag, it's not necessary. You can just type it like this, title, but we can see our body has an opening and a closing tag, and everything inside of it is in our body. Now, some tags are all in one. You'll notice with the meta tag, okay, it just it doesn't need a closing tag because a meta tag, everything inside of it is the same. Same with image tags and a couple others that are exceptions to this. They don't need a closing tag because you don't have a start of an image and a close of an image. You just have the link to the image you want. But with a title and paragraphs and all of that basic stuff, you do need an opening and a closing tag. So I just typed the word title. I'll do Control S and watch on my left-hand side here. Look at that. There's our title. Cool. So that worked. And we can type a paragraph underneath of it. And we can say, this is my portfolio page. Okay, cool. And we refresh, and there it is. Okay, cool. And then you want your image. We'll use an IMG tag. So I'll do the opening bracket IMG. And then now we need to give it a source for where it's looking. So src equals double quote, and then inside of there, you want to reference /images because that's where it is inside of my file explorer. It's in the images file, and it's called profile_picture.jpg. So you do need to reference the file extension as well. So it's important to know what file type you have. Images / and then look at that. It auto completes for me. It knows it's there. I just hit tab, hit save, and there's our image. Cool. So we're getting somewhere. We have a website beginning to happen. Now you can see this body tag is red because I didn't close my image. I will just go close. Now, there's something we're missing on this image tag. Even though it worked, it's very, very important to include something called alt text. So we do alt equals quote, and inside of there we provide something called alternative text, and that is what the browser will render if the image doesn't load. And there's multiple reasons that could happen. The internet could be too slow, the database might not have it stored, and it will load the alt text instead, or it's something that can be used if there's a visually impaired user and they can't see the image. They'll actually have the computer speak to them whatever you type in this quote. So it's very important for accessibility reasons for users who use the speech-to-text platform. We put in here a profile photo of Benjamin Van Aragon. Okay, it won't actually add that text to the website, but it's there in the background just in case that image never loads. Okay, cool. So I'm going to full screen that, and I'm going to full screen my website just to get back there. But it is really cool being able to work in an environment that automatically updates, and you don't have to refresh it every single time. So you can just code away, save, and see your changes live just like that. Okay, cool. So obviously we want to center this stuff and make it look way better, use a different font, change some colors, all of that good stuff. Before we get there, we want to learn how to, I'm making a bunch of noise here. We want to learn how to change pages, okay? So let's say, I'm going to change my title first of all to say my name, because that's what we said. Above this, we're going to make a header, right? Or a link that will take us to the About page. Now, we can make links with anchor tags. An anchor tag is represented with the symbol A, and then inside of it, same thing, src is the source that it's going to take us to. Oh no, sorry, not src, href. It's a reference, or it's how we contain a URL that the hyperlink will point to. So this is a hyperlink reference. We do equals quote, and then here we can see the options we have. We can link to index.html, about.html, whatever you want. So I want to link to about.html because that's the page I want this to come to. And then after we close this, okay, in between the start and closing of our anchor tag, you can write whatever text you want here. I'm going to write about me, okay? And if we go back to our website, we can see there's an about me, and we can see it's blue. It's rendered blue as an anchor tag. And if I click this, look at that. It takes me to the about page. Now the about page is empty because I haven't coded anything in it. But if I look at the URL here, we can see that it actually changed to about.html. So I'm going to go to the about.html file, and I'm going to actually copy all of the code that I've written so far in index.html. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to change the title to About Me, because that's what this page is. I'm going to make a link that takes me to, I'm going to duplicate line 16 and make a link that takes me back to the home page. So home. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to make the title say about me. This is my about page. Okay, and I'll keep the image the same, whatever. I'm going to make something you always want to do is have your header or your navigation the exact same. So we'll do that. Cool. Now I'll go back and shouldn't have to refresh the about me page, but yeah. There we go. So we can see I've got two links at the top here. I can go between home and see that it says Benjamin Van Ergon. This is my portfolio page. And then I can click about me and it says about me. This is my about page. Cool. And then obviously we can put whatever images in there. We can put, we can also make, we really want to get really ambitious here, which we will get ambitious. I can copy my about page, paste, and then rename it to projects.html. Okay, and in projects.html, I'm going to make another link. Projects.html. Projects. This is all of my projects. Cool. And then obviously we'll change this image later. Now I want to show you something, okay? Check this out. So we've got our links here to home, about me, and projects. Now, if I go to the projects.html page, and we can see I'm here on the projects page, I've got the links to home, about me, and projects. Now, if I click projects, it takes me to projects. That's fine. We can see the title still says about me, so I need to update that. But if I go to the about me page, look, how do I get back to the projects page? It's gone. Well, I need to actually update those links on all the pages, because if I go to the About Me page here in Visual Studio Code, then we can see I still only have 2 links. But on the projects page, I have 3 links. So I'm just going to copy these and make sure that they're the identical version on index and on about. Okay. Good. And I'll save that, and I'll make sure I change the title to say projects. Great. Awesome. Okay. So we've got a basic website, okay? And you can obviously link, well, let's do that now. Actually, we'll go to our projects page. And I am going to use as a dummy photo for projects. Let's see, what can I do? I want to use something that I've done before. So if you have a project and you want to use, an icon to represent it, or a screenshot of it in an app or something like that, then you can go get those images ready. I'm gonna just use some placeholders for now. Okay. So I'm gonna do, let's say I made a money tracking app. Obviously you can do something like this, right? So we'll save this image. Now you want to use your own images, but for the purpose of the class, I'm just doing this just for speed. But I will save this as budget app.png. And then what's another app? Let's say we've made a poker app. Okay, so you do this. Poker. One last one, just to have three, nice even number. An exercise. Something that kind of just the last two. Save image as. Okay, and then we'll just type exercise. Okay. So going to our code on the projects page, obviously instead of a profile picture here, I want to use my budget app. And then I would type a budget app icon made for the application, for the mobile application. And then we'll just copy this line of code. Oops. We'll just copy this line of code 3 times and change it to the poker app and the exercise app. And then I obviously change the alt text to alt text about poker app and alt text about an exercise app. Now you would actually write the alt text in here, but for the sake of time, I'm just kind of using a placeholder. Okay. And we refresh it. Whoa, our images are all over the place, right? So that's not what we want. We want it to look something like this, right? Where we have, this is 4 projects, but we'll just do it with 3 for now. We obviously want to make our images the same size, right? So how do we do that? Well, we would use styling or CSS. So we want to make them responsive, right? We don't want our project looking like this. Obviously, we'll talk about centering the text and making it look a little bit neater, but we want to fix this with the images first. So let's focus on that. Let's go to our code and let's do some CSS, okay? So in CSS, how it works is you have selectors. So that would be a selector. And what that would do is it would affect a specific type of HTML element. So IMG is the same as IMG right here, and it's going to affect all IMG tags. So if I do like what I was talking about earlier, P is the P tag in HTML. So you just write P and then you do curly braces. Everything inside of the curly braces, we would do selectors and values. So if I wanted to make everything that was a paragraph the color red, or if I wanted to use the hex value, I could use the hex value, right? Then we could do that. You can also type some basic colors. If we wanted to do red, okay? This is not going to affect only one paragraph on one of the pages. It'll affect a paragraph on every single page. So let me just show you here. And here, if we refresh this, it's not saved. Oh. Should be. Not work. Maybe that didn't work. I'm doing the wrong. If we wanted to, let's see. Okay, text align center. Okay, that's a pretty popular one. That'll work. Refresh this. Do I have p tags? So yeah. Okay. Well, I'm a little bit confused why that's not working for me, but we will go on. Maybe if I do an H1 here. That's confusing. H1. Interesting.
Uh, Professor, we have to include CSS file in index.html.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that is such a basic mistake I just made. I had assumed I'd already done that. Yes, you're completely correct. Okay, so check this out. In our metadata, where we set the title and everything, this is also where we reference other files that we want to include, such as our style.css. So just because I have my style.css and I have this effector on my color or my text alignment, doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to affect my HTML files unless I actually include it in here. Okay, so what we want to do is actually include our CSS in our HTML. And you can do this with JavaScript as well. So it's very simple. You literally just write a style tag, or sorry, not a style tag. Whoops. You can do this style tag. You do it through a link. So there's multiple ways you can do CSS. You can write CSS in here. So if I wanted to do, inside of my HTML, I could do it like this, and then I could write, my CSS code inside of that. Okay, and then if I actually did save this, okay, and went to my website, that was on the home page, I believe I was typing that on. Let's see. Yeah, that was on index.html that I typed that on. So if I go to index.html, right now I'm on the projects page, there we can see it made the text red. Okay, there's another way that's better, I think, to include this, and that is by actually just linking to our style sheet. So we're going to say the type of link we want to link to is our style sheet, and then we use the same href tag, and we will link it to style.css and close that tag. Now you want to make sure you include this link on all your HTML pages. Okay, so on the projects page, on the about page, everything, because we all want them to have CSS. Now, if you want to use different CSS on different pages, then you can make a different CSS, but I'll show you how to affect specific things later at a different time. But now if I refresh, look at that's centered because I have the text align center, and it's on all my pages. So if I go to the About Me or the Projects page, we can see it's centered there. Okay, so we want to fix these images next. So that's what we want to do. So that's why it's called cascading style sheets, because all of the H1s were affected. Okay, we'll do the same thing with our P tags for now. We'll do text align center. All right, and that's what we want to do. Okay, now we want to affect our images. So just like how we affected our H1s and our Ps, our paragraphs, we're going to do it with IMG as well. Now everything inside the brackets, I can do multiple things, will be affected, and you always do your value, your selector that you want to affect, and then the value. Okay, so if it's color, red, text align, center, and you always separate them with a colon and end each line with a semicolon. Okay, so if we want to do our images, okay, we want to make the width 100%. There's a couple other properties we're going to add. We want height to be auto. And then we want our height to be auto, width to be 100%. And then we want, do I see, which one did I do? I believe display block. Try this one. Float left. I'll try that. Let's see what happens. Oh no, that is not what I wanted to happen. That made them all the same size, but it blew them up. Try this display block. Yes, I forgot a very important step. So before we can actually make this all work, we want to make sure all of our items that we're affecting are inside some type of container. So on our projects page with our 3 images, what we want to do is nest all of those images in a div. A div is short for divider, and divs are basically, the life and bread of HTML or websites. Everything is a div. Everything is divided into little chunks, and you can have divs that have all sorts of different properties and look real neat. So I just put my 3 images and then I indented them inside of my div here, and we can see that little gray line showing that everything is inside my div nice and neat. Okay, now my div itself, someone at the door. Just gonna pause this for a second, guys. I'll be back in just a minute. Sorry, resume. Awesome. Okay, we're just gonna continue the recording here. I just had to step out for a bit, so thank you for your time dealing with that. And okay, so we just put our images in a div. Okay, and we want to give this something called a class. And what a class lets us do is it lets us specify something, some type of style for any element that has that class. Okay, so if I type this class and I call this whatever, container, or maybe more appropriately, pictures container, I'll just copy that to make sure I get the spelling right. If I have another class later on, say on my about page with 3 images as well, or 2 images or 4 images, whatever styling I apply to it in the class in CSS, it'll affect it there as well. So it's a way to specify without affecting every single div. It'll affect things that have this class. So this will only affect this div. It won't affect every div. So we come to our style.css and we want to affect our class. Now, we can't just type it like this, pictures underscore container. You see it doesn't know what you're talking about here. But if I put a period in front of it, that's how we reference a class, because now we can see it says it's an empty rule set because there's no rules that have been made, CSS rules for setting the width and stuff. But we want to add the rule display flex to it, okay? Let me get rid of this. And we will do vertical align middle. Okay, so now this display flex will affect that class, and I'll come back here and look at that. Okay, they are definitely, not made for this, but I can affect things, or I can come back here and make the width maybe 50%. Let's see. Let's make it height. We'll also do 50%. Little bit trickier. What else do I want to do? Just because this image is huge. There we go. Try this one too. Object fit cover. Just trying to get these images a little bit cleaner looking. That's not the one. So what I'm showing you right now is exactly kind of the problem of dealing with raw CSS, or basically straight CSS that's just from scratch. And I'll show you guys next week how to implement Bootstrap. It makes this process way, 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 way easier. I want to try one more thing. Just because I actually don't do this often. There's tools that have already been made that make this process way more elegant and a lot cleaner looking. So I'm just trying to find one more. Oh, you tried this one. Okay, let's try what Docs did here. He did width 33%, height auto, float left. Okay, so he made it a little bit. So you can play around with them. Now, I'm going to get rid of this vertical align. Let's try that. Let's see what happens here. Oh, that looks better. Oh, okay, yes. So that vertical align one was messing me up and it was making them different sizes. So we can actually, we can make this even way smaller if we really want because these images are huge. And then we want to center the entire thing. So we can do okay, and then what I want to do is center it using our margin tags. So margin left auto, margin right auto, and the margin should, oh, because I did float left, I wonder if I do float center. How do you center floated? Do it. Display block. That would work. Anyways, doesn't really matter too much. We'll continue this display inline block. I don't want to spend too much time. You can spend so much time getting stuff in CSS working, but centering a we'll try a couple more things and then I'll move on because I don't want to spend too much time on this. Let's see here. Display block. Margin left, margin right auto. And then justify content center. Let's see if that works. Nope. Display flex. There we go. I don't need this float anymore. Cool. So there you go. You can have these projects. Now, say you wanted to make this text bigger. Okay, H1 is the biggest type of heading. So I'll just show you guys. This is what I had. I had to do width, 20% height auto, and then in my class of pictures container, I did display flex, margin left, margin right auto, justify content center. That was the key right there. It's just a matter of finding the classes that work, and I haven't actually done it for a really long time. So from scratch, actually, I use Bootstrap usually. There's a lot of tools that do it for you automatically with a pre-made class. So that's why it's been a little while since I've had to do that. So good thing we got that out of the way and fixed. Now, something I want to show you, what we can do. Imagine we're on this page and we want to get taken to the actual project. We want to link to another site for each of these, right? Well, how do you link from an image, right? If you want there to be an actual link from the projects page, then what you can do is inside of the image source and alt here, we can add another element before the closing tag called source src equals, and then for now, I'm just going to test it out with, redirecting me to the HTML, the about.html page. See if that works. And if I hover over it, oh, I believe that is the one. src equals, to put a slash in front of it. About, there we go. Save. And now if I hover over it, which one did I do? Source, da da da. Yeah, you can do it like that, Daksh. You should also be able to do it like, yes, actually, I'm doing it incorrectly here. You put it inside of an anchor. Yeah. So we have our anchor tag. Now I'm just going to tab this in. We have our anchor tag, okay, and I'll take the closing anchor tag and put it underneath, and we'll just nest it like this so that you can see it plain as day. So our image is inside of our anchor tag like this. Now there's no link right now, but what we can do is add the link the same way we added a link up here for our navigation. So just like Doc suggested, we do an href to our about.html, and then inside of that, it's linked to our image. So if I save that and go back here, now obviously that changed some things, but we can see if we click it, it'll bring us to our about page. So, you always have to do some styling now because this is inside of an anchor. It's going to change the way that it's interpreted in the browser. So an unwanted effect, really, but that is a way that you can add a link. Now, if you don't want the image itself to be a link, then what we could do is underneath each picture, you could add a piece of text or something like that in a paragraph. Right, if I did this, click here to read more. Like that. Now, obviously, you'd want to style this so that it shows up underneath, which we'll get into a little bit more next week with more of the styling stuff. I don't want to cover too much styling stuff. Right now, this is going to be more the HTML. So we'll just get rid of that for now. And we've got our portfolio page. Okay, very nice. Now, something I want to talk about with the projects page, with the actual text. So this is an H1. You can also have an H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6 is as small as it gets, and then P is the next size. So if we wanted an H3, like a subtitle, you could do that, and it would look something like that. Okay, and obviously it's not centered, so it's not over here, but there's another thing that you can use. Called VWs. So if I want to make my H1 a little bit bigger, here we can go font size. Try 10 VW. Look, that's huge. Okay. Try 6 VW. VW stands for view width, and it's going to be proportionate to the size of your browser width. So it'll actually change and be responsive as you change the size of your browser. So we can see it'll actually get smaller if someone's on a phone or a tablet. That's what we use VWs for. Subtitle, and there's our projects page. Cool. So very basic, very rudimentary stuff. I didn't even get through the PowerPoint. Here's all your common tags for your HTML. If you ever want to refer to them here, you can also find them on W3 Schools. We talked about metadata already. We talked about basic CSS, commenting, the order of how you build your page. So you have your head, your body, your H tags, your P tags, any comments, and then your div classes. What else did we talk about? We talked about margin, right? So and padding is kind of very similar to add padding around a content. We'll cover more of that next week. What's the other PowerPoint that I want to cover? Single photo. So I think that's enough for you guys now to kind of play around with, get your images set up, the text set up, and sort of start experimenting with some of the styling and the links like this. Now, next week, I'll cover how to actually make a nav bar and how to implement Bootstrap. So don't worry too much about the styling, but get your content on there. I'll probably extend the due date for the project so that when we cover the stuff next week, you can implement it into the project. So keep your eyes open for an email for that. But one last thing, if you guys want to learn how to use a font, okay, let's find a font that we like. This one here, it's pretty nice. Okay. So which style do I want? Select this style. So if you want to link to it, you can download it so it's actually in your, dismiss that. You can download it so it's actually saved locally on your machine, just in case the link to this ever goes down. Now, for this example, I'm just going to use the link because it's hosted online on Google fonts.googleapis.com. Excuse me, but to embed it, you can just copy this code like it says and put it in the head of our HTML. So we'll go here and the head of our index.html. We can see they're referencing a style sheet for Google Fonts, and then a couple other things called pre-connect. They're doing whatever Google's got to do to make that font work. And let's refresh it and let's check that work on our index page. Don't think that worked. Other thing we can do, there's a font family in our CSS, is because everything is in the HTML tag, and just make this rule, font family, open sans, condensed sans, serif. Let's see if that does anything. There we go. So you have to include both of these things. So the first thing I did was I took this link and I put it in my head tag. Okay, you saw me do that. The second thing you need to do is create a CSS rule to specify the families. Now, remember, HTML, the HTML tag, if we go to our index.html, it encompasses everything. So we've got HTML here, and coming all the way down, we've got the close of HTML. So our entire website is in that HTML. It's the parent tag, right? So what I did was I created a CSS rule that affected everything within the HTML tag selector, and then I specified the font family to be open sans, condensed sans, serif. And where I got that rule from was right here. I just copied and pasted this. And now it's using that font. Now we can see it's very, very small. So I'd probably adjust this inside of my paragraph tag to make the font size something more like 3VW. Let's see. That looks nice. Very good. Now, to show you how classes work, just to finish off a little bit, on my homepage, say I want this image to be centered. We can try this. I don't know exactly what it will look like because I'm literally doing this as I go, but we'll create a div and we'll put this image inside of it and I'll tab it in. And then we're just going to give it the class of, what was it? Pictures container, something like that. This is how classes work. So pictures container, I'm going to make sure it's spelt right, save it, and it'll probably center it and maybe shrink it a little bit, but there we go. So that's how using classes we can affect, you know, something very easily. Can we download these font files and use it like the way we use images? Yes, Harshit, you can. So if you want to actually save it, you can hit the import and then, you can actually download the font family up here or hit the download all here and then read the documentation for how to import it that way if you want to import it locally. All right. So there's multiple ways you can actually do it, but you can look at the licensing here. Obviously, most of them are free, but sometimes you have to reference stuff, digital commercial, otherwise they don't really care, I think, so it's fine. Now on my about page, you can see everything with the text has been updated, but not my image. So I'm going to apply the same class to my image on my about page inside of a div. So we'll make another div. Just put that inside. Make sure I indent it. And then we'll just give it that class. Class equals pictures underscore container. We'll go back to it and there we go. It's refreshed, it's centered, looking a lot better. Now I might want to make these, you can see that the fonts are this way on the first page, but on the second and third page, they've used sans serif, but they haven't actually updated to the Google font that I'm using. And that's because on my index.html, I added these links, but I didn't add them on every page. So I'd have to add that in the about head and in the projects head, right? Just like that. As you can see, your projects grow quite fast in HTML, and I'm hopefully I'm not going too quick for you guys. If I am, this will be recorded and you can slow it down and play it back, but now we can see the fonts have updated. And okay, as I'm using this, my projects, my home, my about me page, I can see that these links are a little bit small for me. And I know that those are anchor tags. So what I might do is my anchor tags, I might just affect them, really quickly. This is not best practice, by the way. I'd probably put everything inside of a header. Okay, you know what? I'll show you best practice. I don't want to do something that's not great. Okay, so what we'll do, all of these anchor tags, I'm going to put inside of a div. Okay. Actually, better yet, I'll put them inside of something called a header. So it's actually the header tag. Okay. And I'll tab them in. So we've got these things inside of our header tag, and I'm going to copy that and make sure it's the same on each page. So we've just nested them inside my projects page, my body, header, save. Okay, so everything is inside of my header tag now. So now if I add any links anywhere else, they won't be updated. Only the links in my header will be updated. So what I can do is apply these changes to my header, and then I'll just make the font size a little bit bigger, and we like 2VW. Sure, let's try that. There we go, nice and big, perfect. So we can click these, and there's a very basic, clean looking website. Nothing fancy, nothing special, but you can get your content on there as of now and start working. And then we'll talk a little bit more about making it something more in depth next week. But you can get most of your website done A great resource is W3 Schools. You can go through here, and all of the different type of CSS properties are right here. If you want to do any alignment, any background colors, they have totally great tutorials where you can actually hit try it yourself, and then it shows you how to add background color like this to all of this text, and there you go. And you can actually change it in here. You can change the code and see it update live. They also have really great stuff for HTML. So up here at the top, they do all of these languages, but HTML and CSS is what we're talking about right now. So if you want to do HTML elements, here's our H1 and P tags. There's also a break tag that I didn't talk about yet. And you can actually go in here and hit try it yourself, and it will render the HTML, and we can see there's their first heading, there's their first paragraph, but they have stuff about everything. So images, how to render images, how to center them, how to add the alt attribute. And if you want to get really into it, you guys can go for it and find things even further about, adding adding paragraphs and stuff, adding block and inline, all of that good stuff. Layout, responsiveness. The world's your oyster, right? So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know you can totally use those to actually get your website to where you want it to be. Stuff. So that will be it for today. I'm hoping you guys kind of thought that was good. Close this PowerPoint. We only made it through 2 PowerPoints. I was hoping to get through a little bit more actually and use these color themes, but we'll do that next week. We'll continue on. We'll get to Bootstrap and photos and CSS and all that good stuff another time. But I'll end the recording here. So if you want to play it back, you can watch the recording. So I'll just stop that. Can I just get some feedback from you guys?